So there's no One Piece chapter this week, so I'm doing another one of the Black Clover Royals ones. So this is the last one that I have in regard to the Wizard Kings, because I'm going to be talking about Julius Novachrono in this one, and he is the somewhat current-ish Wizard King that we have. Given the fact that at the time that I'm recording this, the story is still on hiatus, and we will see how that ends up applying. I'm really hoping they get it going again soon, so we can find out what happened. At the very least, they left off at something cool. And then I am going to continue with some more of the Black Clover ones, because I'm going to do ones about the current king of the Clover Kingdom, Augustus Kira Clover the 7th, or whatever he is. And then the Witch Queen and Lolopechka, and then separate ones about each of the different Dark Triad siblings, along with the one that kind of coincides with Julius a little bit, given information that we found out right at the start of this current arc. So that I actually pulled out a little, clock that I have, stopwatch, not a stopwatch, whatever that I have, pocket watch, that's the word, pocket watch that I have. This is actually one of the Doctor Who pocket watches that has like all the Time Lord stuff on it, and then just another pretty design on the back that I think are flowers, but I don't know, because Julius's power is, of course, a power over time. He has time magic, and I thought that was rather applicable with this. And he does kind of regenerate, and the fact that he does die and then come back. And he also has a secret identity, so there's that. Or another half of him that he was unaware of up until very, very recently. So there's all of that stuff, which I will be getting into. So going into Julius, Julius is the 28th Wizard King of the Clover Kingdom, and he is the former captain of the Grey Deer Squad. And he had several very notable members within his squad. Yami came from his squad, as did William Vengeance. They both came from his squad, and then he promoted them into being captains of their own squads. With, of course, Yami getting the Black Bulls, and with Vengeance starting the Golden Dawn. I believe the Azure Deer eventually ended up becoming the Aqua Deer that are being led by Rill, being led by him. So there's that. So it's this continuation of thing where like the squads may differ a little bit from time to time in regards to, like kind of what color they're associated with, because they all have like some form of a reference to a color in them, which I think I went over a bit with some of the other ones. And Julius is chronologically, as of the last time we saw him, he is chronologically 44 years old, but currently, the last time we saw him, he was physically 13 years old, given stuff that I will talk about. And again, thing that was revealed to us very recently is in regards to his relatives, because spoiler, that's going to be happening right here, right now. If you are not caught up on Black Clover, there is a spoiler about to come. And hopefully if you are watching this, you are at least caught up on the manga. If not, go get caught up on the manga. Go get caught up on the manga and then watch this video, because there's going to be a lot of spoilers in this, in the end of this video and right here at the beginning. So that's up to you. I don't usually do spoiler warnings, but this is kind of one of those. So it is revealed to us through something that I'll go over in a moment when I get to the start of Julius's biography, is that Julius is actually kind of the twin soul brother of Lucius Zogrates. And Lucius Zogrates is the oldest of the 4 Zogrates siblings that are Dante, Vanica, and Zion. And they are the Dark Triad, the Spade Kingdom Dark Triad that they have to deal with during the Spade Kingdom arc, that, they all have to fight and everything like that during that arc. and they're the main villains of that arc. And Lucius is actually their older brother. And just going in the actual biography here of Julius, Julius was born in the Spade Kingdom, and he shares a body that is a twin soul version of a body with Lucius Zygrade. At some point, it was I think it was somewhat determined, or the way that they explained it in the story, and this was something that kind of confused me for a little bit, but I believe how they explain it in the story is that they share the same body, and that at some point in time, Lucius gave up control of the body to Julius, and Julius, unbeknownst to himself or having his memories altered, depending on certain things, did not actually fully realize that he was from the Spade Kingdom and everything like that, did not know that he had this connection to Lucius and the other Zogrates siblings, and that connection there. And eventually, he ended up moving to the Clover Kingdom.
Brenda, are you okay? You okay, baby girl?
I'm assuming something to deal with that also ends up involving the devil Azeroth that is connected to Lucius, and technically inhabits Julius's body as well. But the thing is that Julius is not conscious of any of this information. As far as I'm aware, he either thinks he was born in the Spade Kingdom and then moved to the Clover Kingdom, and that's where his allegiance lies, is to the Clover Kingdom, where his loyalty lies there, or he just has false memories of growing up in the Clover Kingdom, and then eventually is integrated into this, noble family, the Novachrono family, and then eventually through everything as he grows up, he would eventually get his grimoire, and then he would eventually end up, through all of his training and everything like that, become the captain of the Great Deer within the Magic Knights. And he, works through all of that and gets stronger and stronger. And throughout this time frame, once he's a captain, he actually ends up going and finding lots of the other different Magic Knights. He ends up befriending Yami, because he sees Yami using dark magic, and he thinks that's quite interesting. And he has, Julius is very much a nerd when it comes to magic, which I love that they set that up that way. That the author set that up that way, where he's just like, oh, you have dark magic. Oh, that's so interesting. Tell me about it. And I love that. And it's like, he doesn't discriminate against Yami, even though Yami is, the foreigner, the outsider, as they always call him. Julius doesn't discriminate against him for that. He ends up coming across William at one point in time, and befriends William, and eventually ends up helping William become a bit more comfortable with himself. And he's the one that makes William the helmet that William wears to cover up his, the curse mark and everything on his face and everything, and helps William with, getting stronger with his own magic. He also has a past with Morgan Faust, who is, he was, part of the Grey Deer, with him and Yami and everything like that. So there's that connection there. And then, so there's a lot of stuff that happens there. He also has a connection to, and I'm blanking on the Black Bull Squad member, and I apologize. He's the one that has the Ash magic. He has a connection to him because Julius actually knew his father, Zora. That he knew Zora's father, and that he was one of the Magic Knights that actually liked Zora's father and respected him and didn't look down upon him just because of his, common birth, as opposed to him being a noble. And so they have that connection there, which is why he recognizes Zora later on, when they have the whole Magic Knight tournament thing that happens, battle team tournament. And eventually it ends up during his time frame, he becomes, and this is stuff that kind of shows us takes place during the Wizard King movie, the Sword of the Wizard King movie, which I don't know if they've actually stated whether or not that is like fully canon or not, but considering the fact that it doesn't really clash with other information that we have been given, I'm assuming it's supposed to be canon. That Julius had become friends with Conrad Leto. And during their time as Magic Knights, Conrad was the captain of the White Serpents, and Julius was the captain of the Grey Deer, and the two of them were very good friends and everything like that. And then Leto was the one that became the Wizard King, the 27th Wizard King, the previous Wizard King. And then because of things that happened with his life, he ends up trying to destroy the Clover Kingdom by using the Wizard King's sword. Julius, along with, like we see Nozel, and we see Fergolion, and we see Yami, and we see, I think, Marileona is there as well, and several of the other captains all then fight against Conrad in order to defeat him. And Julius uses his chronostasis magic in order to trap Conrad within a time bubble, so that way Conrad is unable to escape. And that is supposedly happens about 10 years. I don't know if that's supposed to happen 10 years from the moment that it previously takes place within the story, as in at the time frame that the movie takes place, or if it's supposed to be like just 10 years before the start of the story actually happens. I don't know. That's never actually specified. But so they lock away Conrad, and then Julius then becomes the new successor, becomes the new Wizard King, and takes up the post as the 28th Wizard King. After this happens, there ends up being a conflict between the Diamond and the Clover Kingdoms, which the Heart Kingdom seems to be like really the only one that the Clover Kingdom hasn't seemed to gone to war with at any point in time, because they keep having these problems with the Diamond Kingdom back and forth, and we even see that throughout the story arc with when Austin and the others have to deal with have to deal with the Diamond Kingdom in that regard, and those various points. And then there's also various points throughout the other Wizard Kings' lives that I've talked about, with like Princia, and with Jester, and with Edward, where there's other wars with the Diamond Kingdom. So the Diamond Kingdom seems to be the main one that the Clover Kingdom has a lot of beefs with, or they have a lot of beefs with the Clover Kingdom. And I think it's because the Clover Kingdom have a lot of really good resources, and the Diamond Kingdom want those resources, is what I'm thinking it is. And so what ends up happening is that, Julius goes off and he deals with the Diamond Kingdom, and ends up encountering, certain people on the battlefield and fights them. And then eventually they return, the war ends, this conflict ends, and he comes back to, back to the Clover Kingdom, back to the capital. And, at some point in time, he sees that there is this, that several of the, he sees the way that, more of the lower, more common people have been given the opportunity to join the Magic Knights. And he also unfortunately sees that a lot of these people have been treated very badly. Yami, of course, at some point in time, during all of this time frame, during like that 10-year time frame, Julius has made Yami the captain of the Black Bulls, and he makes William the captain of the Golden Dawn, or allows them to start their own Magic Knight squad. And of course, Yami takes in lots of the different miscellaneous ones that we've seen and everything like that, where he doesn't care what their birth status is and that type of stuff. And well, William doesn't necessarily care as much about people's birth status. He just wants those that are the best at what they do in that regard, to be on his squad. Which we see later on with because he does not know that is actually of royal birth from the Spade Kingdom. um, from the Grimali, whatever it is, Grimalberry, whatever, from that line. He still wants on his squad because has demonstrated his power as being very good and having very good control over it and everything, regardless of birth status. And Vengeance doesn't seem to hold anything against Asta for his birth status. He just doesn't see Asta as useful because Asta doesn't seem to have any power during the Magic Knight trial and everything. So Yami was the only one that took an interest in Asta. Clearly, all the rest of them are just like, why would I want him? He can't do anything. But Julius, encourages Yami and William to develop the squads as they wish and everything. And eventually he returns, being welcomed with cheers of joy from the noble realm's citizens and everything like that. Given the fact that when Asta and the others interact with him for the first time, like when Asta and interact with him for the first time, Asta does not seem to realize that this is the Wizard King. I'm assuming that there's not a huge amount of picture recognition of Julius. I mean, we see that there are the abilities for them to have pictures or something like that in the newspaper, because we see that happen with Asta and everything, with them, with doing the devil, with him, in his devil form and everything like that, that they disseminate that information, along with a few other things. But it doesn't seem to be that they have, that, or just Asta just completely ignores the newspaper for the most part, which is, I would completely buy that, because Asta doesn't seem to be all that interested in that type of stuff. Although he wants to become Wizard King, and he doesn't pay that much attention to what's going on in the news. It's like, you're still going to be involved in politics, dude. It's not all just taking, fighting other wizards and trying to do that type of stuff. You're going to have to learn about politics and other things that are going on in the world. We also find out that Julius tends to disguise himself as this old woman. He also disguises himself as a bartender as well. At the bar that a lot of the captains frequent, he will disguise himself in those certain cases, and will eventually end up, he ends up seeing Asta and Noelle and stuff like that when they're running around the black market area and stuff like that, and he points them in the right direction and everything like that. And he sees a bunch of others, he witnesses a lot of this other stuff, and it's a way of having it be that he can keep tabs on people without actually having to reveal the fact that he's the Wizard King to them. And so not only does he have time magic, he also has disguise magic, which is kind of nice. And then he also ends up being very interested in Asta's anti-magic, because that's something that he hasn't seen before. And so he doesn't treat Asta or the other Black Bulls or the other lower ranks of the Night Squad or anything like that any differently, regardless of their birth status or anything like that. He's never been particularly fond of treating people differently because of that, so he doesn't do that. And he, the audience's first introduction to him is when they are doing the kind of the reward ceremony, where a bunch of the different Magic Knights are getting rewards or being ranked up to the next level, where because of certain things that they were able to do and stuff like that, for the stars that they earned and stuff like that for their guild, not their guild, for their squad. That's Fairy Tale's guilds. And so they're like, oh, well, what, that's where Asta gets to meet him for the first time, and where we as an audience get to meet him for the first time. And it's kind of very obvious that that we're supposed to instantly kind of like Julius and everything like that for the way that he interacts with them, and is very interested in Asta's, oh, you have anti-magic. Oh, that's very interesting. Would you tell me about it? Type of a thing. And that type of thing. So we have that interaction there. And we are also introduced to Marks, who is Julius's second in command assistant type of a thing, who Julius likes to like skirt his duties and paperwork and stuff like that and just go out and like, be in disguise and check on things and stuff like that around the kingdom. And Marx doesn't like that because it means that Julius is technically not doing his job and it just leaves more work for Marx to do, which is just funny. But clearly Marx and Julius are very good friends. I think it was stated that Marx was like a former member of the Grey Deer as well. And because he was so useful to Julius and they were very good friends at that point in time, and while Marx's magic may not be powerful enough to make him like the captain of a squad, he is still very useful and, Julius's friend. So he brought him with him when he became the Wizard King and has Julius set up, or has Marx set up as part of, his, staff, his personal staff as the Wizard King, which is assumed to be that the other Wizard Kings, the previous Wizard Kings, all have had different staffs. Kind of like how the president has like like a cabinet. This is somewhat similar to that, I would think, where they have certain people that like keep them informed on different issues and stuff like that. We also know that Julius is very much into researching and stuff like that, and studying different types of magic and different types of inventions and stuff like that he finds. He's very interested in that. And then, of course, they have the attack where they have the attack of like the Diamond Kingdom, where the Diamond Kingdom attacks again, and he sends Julius sends Asta and the others to go explore this newly formed dungeon and everything like that. So, there's all of that happens, and where he meets the young knights for the first time after that, and he's interested in like self and everything. So there's all of that. And then there's the moment where we see him alongside a bunch of the other captains for the first time and everything. So there's those moments. Then there is where, because just later that same day is when the Eye of the Midnight Sun not attacks for the first time, because they attacked previously at Magnus Village, but they show up again and they attack the capital. And Julius, ends up traveling to their hideout while they're away and ends up finding a bunch of this other information. And he then uses that and, to then, start figuring out what they can do. They also end up capturing one of the others, like Catherine or whoever it was. It was one of the witch that like wanted to look young. They end up capturing her and getting information out of her. We also see Julius kind of showing off his magic for the first time, where he uses, restraining magic spells when he's attacked. There's also so we get kind of a taste of what his magic is. We also see that he can flip from being this very funny and, very smiley individual to flipping and then becoming like a very more serious individual, which, I mean, a lot of people are able to do that as well. I mean, I've had points in my other job where it's just like, okay, I have to be very serious right now. And or I have to be upbeat when I really don't feel like being upbeat, because working in the service industry requires you to be upbeat. Just like, why? I don't know. Me smiling isn't necessarily going to make people buy stuff. Not necessarily. But, so we see that with Julius and everything like that. He also, I think, helps out Asta at some point during this time frame and some of the other younger magical knights and everything. And eventually he ends up getting to the point where, he's gathered up enough information that, like, once this little attack is done, then they're like, okay, we got to start preparing for when the Eye of the Midnight Sun attack again. And that's when he developed the little magical night tournament thing, because there's also this other thing where it's like when he has the meeting with a bunch of the other captains that, that's where it's revealed that the guy that's the captain of the Purple Orca is actually like a traitor and a spy, and he's been selling information and all of that stuff. And then they capture him, and then they have to get new people, or a new captain there, which is, I think they just promote the vice captain, that type of thing. And so then they get more information out of them, and then that's when they start developing. That's when he starts figuring out, okay, so these magical stones have something that they want, so that he sends Yami and the Black Bulls to the Seabed Temple to get that stone there. And then, later on, he gets more information about that, and they get that crystal, and so he's gathering up those crystals or keeping them with the Black Bulls. And then everything had happened with Fergolion where he got injured, so then he makes Marileona the new captain of the Crimson Lions. And so there's a bunch of other that stuff. So there's like paperwork stuff that he's been having to deal with, probably skirting that and like pushing it off on Marks a lot. And then eventually it becomes the time for them to do the little magical night tournament, or like the team building tournament, where it's all the different magical night squads where they can all volunteer to be a part of this tournament to determine who's going to be the main ones that go and try to fight against the elves. And so, it's like the different squads all get kind of like jumbled all together. And, it's just like, there's like each team has a member from 3 different squads. So it's like it's showing how well these different squads can work together in these different areas, of course. And Julius is watching this. There is also the moment here where we get to actually see his interaction with the king. And the king does not seem to like Julius at all, because Julius is much more popular with the people than the actual king of the Clover Kingdom. And so the actual king is just like, oh, I don't like this. I don't like him having all of this popularity with the people and everything. And this could cause an uprising, which actually is like a valid fear, or a fear that a lot of the other previous nobles and royals within the Clover Kingdom had against certain wizard kings in the past, because that's what happened to Princia, and that's what happened to Jester, and that's what happened to Edward, because they gained such big followings that the royals and the nobles are like, oh, they could make people rise up against us. We got to find a way to take them out. And they eventually did. That's what happened to all of them. And eventually, we see the way that Augusta, who is, I believe, the king, that the actual Clover King, who can really do nothing except make a giant like version of himself because he's an idiot. He's a spoiled brat. And Asta even makes the comment at some point in time. He's like, well, why can't the Wizard King just be the actual king? That just makes more sense. And he's like, ugh, and he's just like very angry about that. But I'll go over that more when I get to the actual king for the Clover Kingdom, when I talk about him in the next video for this. Side note, the guy that voices the king is in the English dub is the same guy that voices Usopp in One Piece. Other side note, if I'm remembering correctly, the gentleman that voices Julius is the same guy that voices Doflamingo in One Piece. And I'm like, when I realized that, I'm like, oh, well, that's a turn and a half there for him to play those two very different characters. Not that there aren't other people that will like play like very good characters in certain anime and very bad characters in a different anime, or very hyper and happy characters and then very more on the quiet and not necessarily depressed but just calm side. There's ones that do the flip where it's just like quiet and depressed as well, but so there's differences there where it's like it all depends on like what type of vocal range they need for the character. But back to this. So they have the Magical Night Tournament, and Julius and the king, along with a bunch of the other captains, are like watching over this to see what will happen during the tournament. And then everything happens with Longris and Finral's battle, where they end up clashing. And then Asta shows up and tries to attack Longris, and then that's when Julius steps in and then has it that they then fight against each other. and have it that Asta's team fights against Longris's team. And I believe Asta does manage to defeat Longris, if I remember correctly, because Longris does get pretty well stomped. And he doesn't end up being on the what is it, the elf extermination squad or whatever it's called at that point in time. That type of a thing. And Julius is also very interesting or very interested when displays his divine die for the first time, where he sees where he combines his power with Sylph. So we see some of that stuff there as well, where he's very interested in seeing how all of these different magical knights will work together, but also use their magic together in different ways, which is a very interesting way of showing off, what the different magical knights are capable of. And it's a way of, it is kind of like a tournament arc, but it's also a way of doing it where it's just like, oh, well, the author was like, well, I want to show off some of these different combinations, but a lot of these different characters wouldn't be in the same area necessarily since they're on different squads. Oh, we'll do this. And I like how they, made that actually make sense in the story. So, and then once they have, once that little tournament thing is finished, then of course they work on developing all the different, which ones are going to be part of this, this new specific, not squad they're developing, but group, and everything like that. So we see that, of course, Asta and Noelle and Luck and a bunch of the others end up being on that group. And their job is to then go and attack the Eye of the Midnight Sun Fortress once they've determined where that is. And then we get into one of the things is that during that time frame, during that battle, Julius stays behind because he is intending to protect the capital during that time frame. And of course, what happens is this is when Patri shows up, pretending to be Lich. Patri shows up, and he ends up fighting against Julius, and then Patri ends up trying to make these giant light blades, come down on the capital to basically kill everyone in the capital. Julius, in an effort to protect his kingdom, activates his grimoire, which is a very interesting grimoire that is just pages that don't really have a beginning or an end. There's no real cover on the grimoire, although I do think that by technicality, I think the author has stated that Julius does have like a 3-leaf grimoire, 3-leaf Clover grimoire. That it would be the equivalency of that. It's just a very unique version of a grimoire. And so Julius activates his Chronostasis Gregoria, is what he activates. And this results in it, stops Patri's attack and then allows Julius to rewind the attack and destroy it. But it's Patri used that as a diversion and then takes his blade and stabs Julius with it. Now, there's the whole other part of that reveal where it is revealed that Patri and Vengeance, William, share the same body, which means that there is a similar thing where William and Patri, and then all the other ones that have, elves as part of, that are reincarnation of the different elves, but they have 2 souls in the same body. Like what we see with Gauche and Marie, and with, so many of the other ones that we see throughout the story arc, throughout the elf invasion arc or the elf body snatchers arc, depending on how it's referred to, where that's explained. And that, William had great admiration for William had great admiration for Julius and great thanks for him, helping Vengeance gain confidence and everything like that. Patri was still Vengeance's closest friend, regardless of anything that Julius had done. So, and I don't think later on Julius does not blame Vengeance, does not blame William for what happened. And Vengeance, of course, is I'm going to do everything I can to try to fix what I did wrong and try to re-earn the trust of the people and everything like that, which is fair. But given the fact that, Julius actually has 2 souls inside of him as well, with Lucius being there, but us not knowing it, Um, you know, that's kind of something that is, an interesting comparison between the two of them. But, Julius gets, stabbed by Patri during this. And then Patri then also rains his like arrows of judgment down upon the kingdom and everything like that. Which is, I think, when Julius, uses his power to like, stop it and everything. Julius does get stabbed and he gets exceedingly injured by that. I believe at that point in time is when Yami shows up and is able to attack Patri, but Patri manages to escape. And then Yami, along with, if I'm remembering correctly, it is Soul Marin, who's one of the members of the Blue Rose Knights, tells her that she needs to protect Julius's body because Julius now, for all intents and purposes, appears dead. Technically, he is dead, if I remember correctly, but he's like, okay, we need to protect him because all of these different elf spirits are coming back, and they are going to try to want to definitely make sure that he is dead. So we have to protect him, along with trying to protect the people of the kingdom as we try to get him out of here. So then Julius basically becomes an escort mission where he has to then, be, get gotten out of like the city and everything like that, take him to another part of the city. And Soul actually kind of like buries him so that way he's like safe, and so she could go and find him again if she has to. And then, the whole battle with the elves happen, and the weird demon and everything like that, all of that happens. And then the next morning, when, Yami and William are at the forest, I think Yami and William have an argument as well during this time frame. Like a kid version of Julius just kind of walks out of the forest, and they're like, "What the heck?" And I think Yami even like grabs Julius by the collar and is just like, "What did you do? What did you do?" I'm like, "You can't be Julius." He's like, "No, I am." And Julius explains that he had found this magical item at some point in time, and he had been putting like time magic or something like that, a form of like putting years of his life into the instrument. And it's called Swallowtail, reference back to Secker, of course, because it's made by the first Wizard King by Lumiere. And so he tries to do a bunch, so he has been resurrected. Time Lord reference, anybody? Reincarnation, resurrection, regeneration, take your pick. And he goes through and he explains to Yami and Vengeance that he's okay. He still has all of his memories, but he doesn't have his powers anymore. All of his, or not nearly as much of his powers as he did before. And then, the meeting, the next day, Yami or William also like repledges his loyalty to Julius and to the kingdom and everything like that to make up for what Patri and the elves had done and everything, to start making up for that. The next morning, Julius reveals to Mimosa, Asa, Noel, and Secker what actually happened to him, that he did die, but he came back and everything like that, and ends up talking with Secker and ends up telling her some information about Lumiere, and eventually she goes and helps him like open up Lumiere's study and everything like that, where then Julius can study what's in there, because it was her sealing magic that closed it, and only her then unlocking it will open it again. After that, we also have the moment where he is reunited with Marks again, and he's just, Marks is very happy to see his boss, his friend, and everything like that. Now Marks basically even gets to act more like a big brother to Julius. So, Julius is very happy to see Marks at that point in time. And then there's, Asta's trial that happens for him and Secker and Marie and everything like that. And Julius sends Nozel and Fergolion to the courthouse when all of that is happening, and ends up making them, stop Dominato from, killing Asta and sentencing him and Secker to something that they did not do, because they're not the ones that caused this problem. It's again finding a scapegoat for your problem, because the royals want you to find a scapegoat because you can't have them blame themselves. Because why would they need responsibility for anything and everything? So we have that happen there and everything. And Julius has subsequently, all of the captains end up becoming aware of what's going on, that Julius has been like reverted to a child. They end up all finding out about it because he trusts them with it. And so there's all of that stuff that happens. And then he's like, okay, well, we need to start developing better relations, and we're going to start developing good relations with the Heart Kingdom. So that's why they sent Asta and Noel and Mimosa and Finral to the Heart Kingdom to meet with Princess Lilipechka and everything like that. So that way they can learn about her. And they also know that there's like this big curse that's in that kingdom. And if they can figure out a way to, fight against these different demon curses and devil curses, then maybe they can work on trying to fix things. To help show fix the Clover Kingdom and everything like that. There's also like a little side thing that happens in this during the anime that I know is not in the manga, but it's a cute thing that they did in the anime, where Julius sends Marx and Frigolion and Nozel out to this like little outskirt village that was like very much, to a degree badly damaged by the elf attack and everything, and sends them there to like actually kind of see that, yes, there's rebuilding efforts that need to be done in the city. That is very true. And in the capital and the other big cities or the big towns, but there's also these small towns that need to help with rebuilding as well, and need resources and stuff like that as well. And it's because we learned that like Julius has this habit of like, yeah, he'll go off on his own, but he'll end up finding his way to different villages and stuff like that, and in his like disguised as an old lady form, and make friends with them there, and be like Granny Novachrono or something like that, or Granny Kronos or whatever they end up calling her, and building this rapport with the people, because if they think he's just like the Wizard King of the village, he's just on the side of the capital, there's nothing there for us, he's not really going to do much for us. He has his disguise forms, which is why he does it, which is why he disguises himself as like the bartender at the bar where the captains go to a lot. So that way he can like have them, he can like witness them talking about him without them knowing that he's there. And he can prevent them from getting into fights, which is funny. Which, whether or not they know that that's actually him is a little bit funny, but it makes them have different interactions, and it forces Nozel and Frigolion and even Marx to a degree to notice how the other part of the kingdom lives in comparison to them in the capital and being nobles and everything like that. So we have that connection there. Then we go back into the sort of the Wizard King, which is where we have it that during the Magic Night tournament thing, that like when Julius had been stabbed by Patri, that actually ended up resulting in the time lock spell on Conrad breaking, and that allowed Conrad to escape, and then he resurrects as Princia, Jester, and Edward. And then of course they then attack during this magical night tournament that they're having, and the whole Magic Night fighting sort of the Wizard King movie happens. They take Julius captive, and then he ends up via Yuno's help and everything like that, they end up escaping, and he cheers Asta on when Asta fights against Conrad and everything like that. So there's all of that happens there, which again, I don't see how the Black Clover, how the movie does much that really affects the is like the canonicity or whatever, how canon it is. I think it's canon, so we'll go with that. And then when everything is happening during the time when the Golden Dawn, where the Black Bulls are off training in the Heart Kingdom and everything like that, and then everybody else, all the other Magical Night squads are all training and getting stronger and everything like that, and then they have to deal with the Black Triad, where they have to fight against the Spade Kingdom, and where Julius can't really do as much because he still has like a very limited amount of what he is able to do with his grimoire. But he still is trying to do his best to protect the kingdom, and of course wants to help with going to save both Yami and Vengeance when they are captured by the by the Triad, because they're his friends and he wants to help save them. I think there is a moment during this fight where he is able to, he does activate a time spell to like protect people, protect the kingdom. But unfortunately, he had been using like disguise magic to make himself appear older, but that gets dispersed and it's revealed to the kingdom as a whole, I believe, that he is a child, that he's been reverted to a child. I believe, and also throughout the course of the story, after he is reverted to the child, there's moments where he does technically have to interact with the king. So they dress up the guy that's like one of the doctors as Julius and like wrap his face up in bandages and be like, oh, he's not allowed to talk. He hurt his throat really badly, which makes the king really happy because it means he can talk and Julius can't. Which is just funny. It makes him just more showboaty and everything. But of course, Julius tries to, Dominato also tries to help with this as well. And like, eventually when Yami and Vengeance are rescued and when the Dark Triad are defeated, then we end up getting to the point where, after all of that happens and everything, they're eventually able to, defeat the Dark Triad, and the Spade Kingdom is kind of, saved at that point in time, or so we think. And then we cut ahead a little while, and I don't remember exactly how far we cut ahead, but there's like another time jump that happens, or a time skip, and then we get to where we get this big reveal about Julius, which is actually revealed that where everything about Lucius is actually revealed. And I believe I think it's Dominato and Julius that figure this out at the same time, because like they're talking and there's like certain information that has come out that they figured out from research or whatever that they were able to do, and that they figured out, oh, there's another Zygarde sibling and there's more devil magic going on and blah 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 blah, and like Julius tries to figure it out, and I think he ends up panicking, and he tries to get Dominato to stop him, to like actually like stop Julius himself, but it's too late, and this has resulted in Lucius awakening within Julius, and then Lucius takes over and transforms into himself, into taking over Julius's body and shifting and changing it and becoming Lucius Zygarde, and having his magic combined with Azarath and everything like that. And I believe he kills Dominato, and that's basically where the information that we have about Julius ends, because we've seen we've seen Lucius now, because he's currently fighting with stuff going on with all of his paladins that he created, and with fighting against like Asta and his group and everything like that, and the Black Bulls, and a bunch of the other Magic Knight squads and everything like that, where he's making that happen. But we don't know the exact fate of Julius yet, and barring it being something where it's like Lucius pulled Julius back into him and like actually killed Julius himself, killed the other soul inside of his body type of a thing, we don't know. Because like the elves didn't do that when they took over the bodies of the different Clover Kingdom people that they took over. Like Patri didn't kill Vengeance, stuff like that. Like that didn't happen. But that could be something where like, Lucius doesn't seem to be quite as happy as the elves. Not that the elves are all that happy given the situation, but Lucius seems to be much more vicious in that regard, regardless of the nonsense about paladins and saving everybody and everything like that, and making a new world order that he may have. But there's not really too much else there. My hope is that after they're able to defeat Lucius, that like either Julius will be able to gain control back again at some point in time, either during the fight and help with like defeating Lucius from the inside, or we might get something where we see like this internal battle between the two of them. We'll see. that's what we have there. I don't really have anything else there for like the timeline wise in regards to the magic. As I said, Julius has time magic. Open. Has time magic. And he uses that to great deal of useful things. He uses it to reverse time to like heal wounds. He uses it to, reverse time on a larger scale. Uses it to, freeze time, and a lot of times with like the chronostasis type of a thing. He uses it as restraining magic on either a small scale or a large scale, depending on what he's doing. He also has his transformation magic that he uses. And of course, like most of the other magical knights, he has immense speed and immense magical power and a monozone. And then, of course, via the Lucius thing, he has the devil possession. But that was... What are you doing? He has the devil possession, but Julius never used that because he didn't know that he had it. Now, I do have another side thing that, like, there's the possibility that one of the reasons that Julius was able to survive is because of Lucius. Is because why he was able to survive being killed by Patri is because something to do with Lucius combined with what happened with, like, the swallowtail device that he developed, or that he found and used. That there might be, like, a combination of things with that. But I could be wrong, but I don't know. And then in regards to his grimoire, as I mentioned, his grimoire is this coverless grimoire that just contains so many different various pages of time magic and spells and everything like that. That after his death, it reverts back to just being this single page. And it means that he has to then like rebuild all of these different spells, because like as we see throughout the course of the story, we see as like people develop new spells, new pages appear in their grimoire. We see that happen with Noelle several times when she develops her, Sea Dragon's Roar and, Sea Dragon's Nest, and when she has her Valkyrie magic and everything like that. That she is able to, that the grimoires gain more pages and fill themselves out. So Julius having that with his grimoire eventually could possibly return to like the big endless cover type of grimoire. A grimoire that has no cover, so it's like no beginning and no end, because it's like it's time, which time really doesn't really have a huge amount of beginning and end in that regard. But that's what I have there for Julius. I thank you for watching. As I said, the next one for this series should be about the current Clover Kingdom king, who is an idiot, a scaredy cat, and a spoiled brat. But he should be the next one that I'll be doing for this series. And why are you licking so loud? Yes, I love you. I'm almost done. Good girl. My good girl. I love you. My good girl. So I thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye.